I watched this anticipated interview by way of Ben Shapiro. He was interviewing, of course, Gina Carano. And you know the whole situation that happened, her being fired from basically The Mandalorian and everything that was going to be happening, maybe possibly and potentially in the future with that, her and that company and their character and that company, which was a very liked character. And this was very anticipated because it's the first big kind of interview that was given after that whole scenario. And not only that, she has joined teams with Daily Wire to do something in the sort of entertainment, movie, film spectrum. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because I've been calling for this for years. This idea of making people rock stars, superstars that don't hate you and aren't necessarily connected to the main guys who control every single point of the narrative. Now, if you watch the video, or rather the interview, you'll see a lot and you'll pick up a lot. It's not necessarily, and for those of you that have not seen it, it's not eye-opening in a sense that the information that she says and she drops is like new. It's more so in the fact that what she is saying is what we already knew, and to hear it come from her as a person that has experienced this, it hits harder than just me, some guy on YouTube, talking about this scenario. You know, when it comes from like her, it comes from Nick Cersei or something, it means a lot. And it solidifies all of the things that we had been saying pertaining to this whole topic. Now, the thing about this is when it comes to these mob, the outrage mob, and let's say some of the posts that they claim to be mad at, though they show no consistency on in regards to this issue, right? Like, we knew that they were hypocrites, and we knew that certainly the Disneys and Lucasfilms were trying to appease that particular mob, because culturally this is what has manifest. Now, like I've said before, they'll never admit that. Certainly the leftists will never admit any of that, mainly because they can't possibly see themselves as bad people. They can't see themselves as bad, rather, in the sense that they're doing something wrong. Everything that they do is right. And if you disagree with them, well, then you are the person that's wrong. So when you bring up the fact that there's this inherent bias, they will say, no, it doesn't exist, because they live in like this different dimension, because they don't want you to acknowledge what you see with your own eyes, or in this case, what you experience. Yes, we know that it has been long solidified that they have been trying to appeal to this particular, like this kind of outrage mob of leftists, which isn't just with people that are, let's say, regular folks. No, it's also to people that work with her, some of her co-workers, blue check marks, people that have some sort of a stay in the industry. They don't like her, and it is because solely of her political slant. The only reason they would dramatize what it is that she says is because of her political slant. This is why guys like the Pedro Pascals can get away with basically saying the same thing, just putting a shoe on the other foot, and then it's no call for his head. It's because one is acceptable and the other is not. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about that, and there's a couple of different layers here that I want to break down. Let's start first with how she says, if you watch it, she comes out basically in definitely in 2020, because this is the first time that she had voted. She admitted, she had, there wasn't anything that she was necessarily into. So she became more obviously outspoken about a lot of the things that were going on, because she had figured that, well, because I'm doing this, I probably should be paying more attention. And as she pays more attention, she comes to her line of thinking. Everything was good until that happened. That in itself should tell you where the bias is at, when there was nothing wrong with her before, and then there was something wrong when she kind of switched up on what they feel is them. But I think more so the important thing to take from that is the conditioning. She talks about like the media trainers coming to her house and telling her that, hey, this is an emotion. You're dealing with emotional people, and therefore you can't have a logical response. It's almost like I have been saying that for a long time, that you can't reason with these people, and they don't accept that because they didn't get to their a position by way. I say this all the time. You cannot reason a person out of a position that they got to by way of emotion. It is literally impossible. And the people that are let's say trying to condition people in their particular industries to appease to those people, they understand that. They understand that you can't, that doesn't work with them. You can be as logical as you want, but you're dealing with an emotional. Gina's way more nice than I am. I'm going to call them dumb son of a bitches because that's what they are. They're brainlets, man. Yes, I'm going to plug the name of my recent song. Why wouldn't I? But they're brainlets. You're dealing with people that are not, they don't got it all upstairs. And they inconsistent. She way nicer than me. I don't give a fuck about none of that. I say whatever the hell I want. But those are the types of people that you're dealing with. You cannot reason with them, and they understand that. But as you see that this kind of demand for certain apologies, and she needs to say certain things a certain way. And then once she comes out as who it is that she is, she has positions that are, let's say, contrary to what a lot of her colleagues have. A lot of people that are the mob that's on the Twitters of the world, they were at some point, Disney and them were at some point actually following that hashtag and the fire Gina Carano. That's who they're appealing to, guys. But you see how there's an acceptable position, and it simply was not hers. And she talks about how it's like headhunting. She actually uses like a boxing analogy as well. And I say that from experience, and maybe some of you guys hearing it from her know what I'm talking about. Backwards deals with that. You can feel when people are trying to get rid of you, bro. It is, sometimes they're not just going to straight up tell you, but they are going to look for a reason to get rid of you. This is what we've dealt with, where, you know, the folks that are connected to the industry that are around you, your managers and what have you, start to feel some kind of way, right? And you know, promoters may feel some kind of way, and it's not like, you can feel that, bro. You can feel that. It's something that it's not that difficult to explain, but if you're not connected to it, you think that it's just someone just seeing ghosts, and it's not. Like, you feel that certain tension, that there's a certain amount of attention and a certain amount of level of critique that is applied to you that simply is not applied to everybody else. And it's not because like you're held to a bit different standard because you're better. No, it's because from an intellectual standpoint, or in this case, a more political standpoint, you differ from what they find to be acceptable. And they find that to be a threat themselves. So they will do whatever it takes to try to get rid of you. They're going to attempt to make it as, let's say, reasonable as possible, or rational as possible. No matter what, they're going to make it appear. But you see how disrespectful these folks are, fool, when you can't even, you don't even have the decency to tell someone like, okay, we are letting you go. You going to let the freaking media know before you let the actual person know. That tells you where these fools are at. They have no respect. They wanted her up out of there, and it didn't happen. They knew that they sought her out for the role. She filled it. She became a liked character. She started being open about her politics, and that's when it hit the fan. Has nothing to do with, well, if she was in any other position. No, I understand that you want that to be true, but it's simply not. And would you please shut the fuck up trying to present it as if there is something here that isn't, let's say, more so what you're trying to present it as. It's a rational response that will be applied consistently regardless of what industry that person was or their political beliefs. And that is simply false. They want that to be true. That's all. They try to speak it into existence. This is how these guys operate. But as you see the inconsistency with this company, how they handle some of the other guys that said some things about, let's say, Jewish folk, equating experiences in the modern day to Jewish folk. And she explained it in the same way that I explained it before. It wasn't necessarily applying to Republicans. She was referring to the actual climate of what's happening here, where people turn on each other and it manifests itself, and this is what we kind of saw back in Nazi Germany. And for those of you, it's always a relevant thing to bring up because people recognize that as a bad thing. But unfortunately, if you don't study history, you are doomed to repeat it if you don't understand how they got to that point. But because they want to sit up here and make it seem like what she did was so foul, to the sense that she was being malicious, they tried to call her anti-Semite because of it. That's what they're doing. They just want to present her as the worst possible person. Like, and it's bizarre because Gina, just even in her demeanor, she's not like me, right? Well, I'm cutthroat. I already acknowledge that. I'm rough around the edges. I understand that I'm going to be an acquired taste for certain people. But she's way more like kind-hearted. And she always has been. No matter what it is that she posts, that's how she is, right? People that are around her that aren't raging leftists would certainly confirm that. She's not like me. I'll tell you to go fuck yourself. She won't do that. I'll do it, but she won't. But they even went for her. It's simply because they wanted her out of there. And you want to know who they're appeasing to. I saw this tweet. This is who they're appeasing or trying to appeal to, excuse me. You got this person who says, why hasn't Marvel fired Chris Pratt yet? Guys, this is a strictly political thing that we're dealing with. They know Chris Pratt is not a leftist, but Chris Pratt isn't like posting about it all the time. He isn't as open as some of the other folks, but they want him gone too, just because he's not one of them. See, my whole thing about this whole entire situation is I would just rather you guys be honest. See, it's not, yes, the bias sucks, right? It sucks for a lot of folks who have been trying to participate in those subcultures. You've hijacked a lot of these properties, and now you're running them into the ground with your political slant. And you feel like you are the only people that are right, and everybody that is to the right of you, Bernie Sanders, is a bad person, and we understand that. But I just much rather you be honest and say that instead of trying to gaslight or rather conjure up this narrative to make it seem like you are the one that's good out of this whole scenario. No, you play politics. Just admit that that's what it is that you do. You don't need to dramatize what it is that certain people say. You don't need to try to make it seem like what someone said is worse than what it actually was, which is what you do, because you just cannot see yourself being the irrational person here. But if anything you take from this, when you watch that Gina Carano interview, it says a lot of what I've said with the music industry, a lot of what I said with a lot of these subcultures, that there is an appropriate way to think according to them politically, which is very divisive, but politically they want you out of there. They do not want you there in the event that you say something that disagree. You can say what would generally align more so with the authoritarian left. You can say that all you want. There's nothing wrong with it. Nobody's going to come for your head. We've already made the comparison on two occasions. A fellow employee, Pedro Pascal, and I'm not saying that they should fire him. I'm just telling you the facts. Twice. 2 times. Where he not only conflates half of the country with freaking Nazis, but he makes a comparison to a modern day, which uses a picture of some folks. Actually, I believe it was nowhere near, like, it wasn't a southern border situation or anything like that. So he uses a fraud picture. So he's lying effectively anyway. But he also equates what happens in Nazi Germany and that experience to what's happening in modern day. He gets away with that. That in itself should prove this has nothing to do with someone being offended at the idea of conflating what is happening right now with the experience of Jewish folk. Now, I get it. And Gina even conceded this in the interview. Maybe we shouldn't always appeal to that, or maybe we shouldn't try to reach to appeal to it. And I can totally empathize with that. I can understand that, why you wouldn't want to immediately go there. But to act like she's the only one that did it is completely bogus. But they know that. And much like the media trainer, you're not like Gina's acknowledged, you're not dealing with people that are being rational or logical. You're dealing with people that are being emotional. So you cannot rationalize with them. She could sit here and say, well, I didn't say anything, and this is what that was bad, or I didn't mean this. This was not transphobic. There's obviously how you even say that this is me being anti-Semite doesn't make sense. That all, and you can say that, you can defend yourself, but that's not good enough for her. But she does show how in that industry, even the folks at why, you probably wonder, like, Gina had to have friends within there. Why didn't they go to bat for her all the way to the end? And she says, like, a lot of them afraid of their jobs, to lose their jobs. Why would you think they're afraid to lose their jobs? Well, it's because there's an acceptable opinion. There's a acceptable political position. And again, they are always the good people. You are always the bad person. So if you not only, and this is why I keep saying, like, you can't say it's because she's more of a conservative. No, that's not what it is. If you were a person that was in there and you were even a libertarian, that's all the same to them. They're coming for you too. I'm a freaking anarchist. In the music industry, dealing with the metalcore and the hardcore community, I told you we've covered this. I did a video you guys go watch, and I talk about the hypocrisy of this freaking community. Like after the George Floyd situation, we have been dealing with this since we've been in it. I'm an anarchist. Alex is an anarchist. Our music is anarchist. It ain't conservative. It does not. It has little to do with her being conservative, and more of it to do with her being, let's say, not leftist and being open with it. I end on this note. I will say that, and this is what I appreciate from Gina. So if Gina, and I know I'm not sure how often she watched my material, but hopefully she does see this. I commend you for not at any point, and this is why you have more balls than almost everybody in this industry that you're in, is because at no point, even if you clarified it, you never went and apologized specifically for them being offended at what it was that you said, or rather you never retracted the actual statement. You acknowledge that they may misanalyze, but you never basically bent the knee to this mob. Whether you know it or not, this is appreciated by so many people. A lot of folks are tired of this. And this is why I looked at your situation and I said, look, you have a opportunity, or this has an opportunity for a lot of folks who have been neglecting culture for so long, talking to you conservatives and libertarians, that have neglected culture for so long that you didn't feel that was important. You thought because you had the ideas behind you that was always going to be enough. But this may be the time that we look at that, and we look at that 10 years, 20 years from now, we say that was the time where folks started to get it, and there was a shift. Now, where's that shift? Does that lead to maybe parallel, let's say, the anti-Hollywood, right? So it's like something that becomes a competitor, but it's not necessarily funneled through them. That may be the case. It may be a case of, well, as that starts to rise, Hollywood themselves begins to change because they understand that they're losing supporters. I've said time and time again, if conservatives and libertarians put as much stock, stake, support, love, admiration, finances into those types instead of people that they hate, that hate them, right? Even if I understand it's going to be harder to combat because they have control of the properties now, because again, they played the long game. But if you put as much support in that, and like the Ginas of the world, as you put in folks that hate you, we could get on the other side of this. And that's what I appreciate from Gina that she's doing. And hopefully we look at this later and we say that was the cultural spot where things got altered. Things got to changing. And folks finally started to get it. Started to less investment in folks that hate them, more investment. And it ain't got to be just conservative. It don't have to be a conservative version of that. Just folks that aren't them. Because that's what they're doing. As you see what happened with Gina, as you see what's happened with other actors that ain't even as openly political, Chris Pratt, they want you eliminated, and they have no problem hijacking whatever properties that you grow up on, Marvel, Star Wars, doesn't matter. They'll take it. It's all about their social political agendas, and then they will keep you out No matter if you grew up on, no matter if they even have an emotional or connection to this material, doesn't matter. They have it now. So what if we put that effort into supporting folks like the Ginas of the world, turning them, and this is why the argument that I long made, turn these people into rock stars. I told y'all that was one of my immediate responses to this whole situation. Y'all have the capacity, whether you know it or not, to turn Gina into the biggest actress in the world. It's enough for y'all to do that. Now, is it going to be funneled through the Hollywood scope? No. That doesn't mean she can't be because the only thing that makes them legitimate is the folks, the people making them legitimate. So when it comes from them, their stupid award shows and all of that, doesn't matter. Y'all have the capacity to make her into the biggest actress in the world. If you stop, or rather, it ain't even stop supporting the other guys. It's more of stop putting as much effort into it. You can watch a movie or whatever. I'm saying, but all of that super fanism. What if you put that in folks like Gina? And this is why I said, and now I'm finally going to end it. I know I said I was going to end on this note. Thank you, Gina. Look, if you are among the folks in these subcultures, music, entertainment, no matter what, we know that there's a political slant and there's an acceptable political opinion that you can have. I've told you that you need to out yourself. Out yourself. A lot of y'all are in hiding because you think that, much like Gina said, you are afraid to lose your job, and I get it. But you are front lines when it comes to this cultural war. Now these milquetoast conservatives are starting to see that all that bull crap they were kind of perpetuating. Hey, you ain't part of no culture war. No, it's right here. It's where Gina's at. It's less about straight politics and more where Gina's at. That's where the influence is, right? It sounds stupid to the people that think, well, I have the best ideas on my side. Well, the folks that they're appealing to don't care. You think they know who their local representative is? No, they don't. But they know who their favorite actress is. They know who their favorite musician is. That's where the culture war is, right there. No matter how stupid you think something like video games is, that's where the culture war is. You can make niggas dumb as all. You the smartest person. You're not dealing with a completely rational people. This is a subcultural battle, bro. It ain't just simply a battle of wits. It is a battle of wits, but more so a battle on having how to navigate culture and become appealing. That's more so what it is. But y'all out there need to out y'allself. And the folks that are consumers need to support them unlike they've never have before. And put as much support of them as they've put in the not politicians, in the actors, actresses, musicians, athletes, all sorts of folks who would then use you guys and boosting them up, and then they'll use that platform to then lecture you and tell you how much you suck. What if you didn't do that with them and you supported financially and been investing and being in everything and turn these folks into rock stars, superstars that don't hate you? We'll get on the other side of this.